Good evening to you all, and what a wonderful evening we're having. Wednesday evening, Lizzie Events live on Facebook. We're really stacking up the lives, as you all know, at this moment in time, because we're running now very close to our Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show. Excuse me. And tonight we've got a really, truly fantastic guest. I met Lou at the Newcastle Wellbeing Show. She's a fantastic lady, and you're going to enjoy a wonderful hour of very, very interesting conversation about her very specialist work in the spiritual world. I'm not going to tell you any more apart from introduce you to this fantastic, really genuinely lovely lady, Lou from Zenderlou. Good evening, Lou. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And thank you. You're very, very welcome indeed. I was seriously impressed when I spoke to you at Newcastle. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. And what we want to talk about, Lou, is obviously what you do. If you've got any, as the people come on board, if you've got any questions, please ask them, but please wait that Lou will wait for the right opportunity to answer questions. Lou does something very special. She's got a great following. She's a holistic animal healer. And I'm going to ask a few questions before we start, the usual things. Who's Lou? Tell me about yourself.
Okay, so I grew up in a little place called Portslade, which is about 5 miles outside of Brighton. I tend to say I come from Brighton because nobody's heard of Portslade, but there we go.
Yes.
So I've always loved animals, and I'll go into that in a bit more in a little while.
Yeah.
But not really knew what I wanted to do, so I kind of worked in retail for quite a little while, and then I worked in office jobs. And around 17 years ago, I moved from near Brighton up to the northeast. And I met my now husband here, probably about a year after I moved up, and lived in Gateshead for a while. And now we've moved to County Durham, which I love.
Yes.
We've got 3 dogs at the moment. And a horse. So quite busy, quite occupied with all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm also running my own business.
Fantastic. So in effect, Lou, you're a very, very busy lady, and you've got lots and lots of aspects. I know you have touched upon it, but have you had a deep love of animals all of your life?
Yeah, always. I started off, I asked my parents, could I have a horse? I was really lucky where I grew up. So in where we grew up, there was a field behind the house, which my cousin used to rent, and she still actually has, where the horses were. So I've literally been around horses all my life.
Wow.
I asked my dad for a horse, and it was no. So I asked for a dog. No. Managed to get a tank full of fish. Started off there. Then I managed to progress to a hamster. Eventually managed to get the dog. So we had a Springer Spaniel when I was growing up. And then I asked for a horse again, and it was no. And then my dad said, well, when you can afford to buy it and look after it for yourself, then you can get one.
Absolutely.
So I went away. I got myself a little Saturday job. I saved all my money. I saved birthday money, Christmas money, and came up with a little plan. Went to him one day and said, right, I've got the money to buy one, and if I part loan it, then I can afford to keep it as well. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, but you said when I could afford to buy one and keep it. And he said, that's not what I meant. I meant when you'd left home and you had a full-time job. And I was like, that's not what you said. So he had to give in. So I managed to get my first pony.
Stuart Kerry is a very great supporter of our work, Lou, and you'll be interested to know that Stuart runs one of the most significant, if not the most significant, Reiki training schools in Nottingham, if not Nottinghamshire. He's very well known. He has got many attunements under his belt, and I think you'll find that Stuart might be asking one or two questions, because Stuart doesn't know it yet, but we're going to start talking about actually what you do, Lou, because it's truly fascinating, and there'll be quite a few questions I'm sure that people would like to ask about what you do, because of people's love of animals, and there are so many people in the mind, body and spirit and the well-being world who have pets and animals, and what you do is very special indeed. So let's go for it. What is your passion, and can you tell us a little bit about animal calming and healing before we go on to the trust technique and the Reiki practitioner aspects of it? So if you would explain that to us, holistic animal calming and healing.
Yeah, so there's kind of two sides to it. So the trust technique is my main thing that I do, and it's actually a technique. It's the qualification of it is actually mindfulness with animals.
Yeah.
But it was actually developed from Reiki and animal communication. But the way it's been developed means that when I teach the person, they don't need to be able to do Reiki, and they don't need to be an animal communicator.
Wow.
And neither do I. So I have done a little bit of animal communication, but I haven't really done much practice in that yet. I still want to do that. And I am attuned to Reiki too. So I do that, and I can bring that in. But the trust technique sort of stands alone anyway. Sorry, go on.
So I was going to ask a question. So could you tell us a little bit about the trust technique itself? I'm really fascinated about it.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people have heard of energy levels with animals, and how, if your energy's up, the animal's energy can come up, and vice versa. So they pick up on our feelings quite a lot. And it's one of the things that we do as well, but we're not so aware of it because we've got this language. We tend to not realize how much we're using our feelings, but the animals rely on it quite a lot. And yes, they have the body language, and yes, they have some, vocal communication, but a lot of the way they communicate is through feelings. And that's a lot of what they pick up from us. So we actually use the feeling of peace to be able to bring them into a calmer state. So it's a little bit difficult to explain the whole thing, because when I do a consultation with somebody, it's usually around 2 hours. So to try and squeeze that into a one question is a bit difficult. But essentially what we do is we have thinking levels. So it's kind of a next step from energy levels, if you like. So we go from a 0 up to a 10. A 10 can be super anxious, got to get out of here, can't cope with this at all. On the other side of that, it can also be super excited, bouncing all over the place. If, like with dogs, could be jumping up, barking at people, just, crazy, some people might say. So there's a very fine line between the anxiety and the excitement, because they're both high thinking levels. What we aim to do is bring those levels down to where they can actually hear us better.
Wow.
So if dogs are super anxious and you're trying to calm them down, a lot of people use treats and things like that, but if they're that anxious, they won't take the treats. And if you're trying to train an animal to do something, if they're trying to, if you're trying to teach them and they're trying to learn something new, it's very difficult for them if their thinking is very high. So we need to bring that down to around a 6 for them to be able to retain that information. And also, even if it's something they know, so like with dogs with recall, they can be taught recall and know it very well. But if they're either super anxious or super excited, and on that level, sort of 7, 8, 9, they're not going to hear you. It's not because they're being naughty. It's not because they're ignoring you. They just can't hear you because their thinking's too high and they're off somewhere else.
Fascinating. And we've already got people, particularly Stuart says that, where are we? Within the wellbeing arena and MBS shows, many visitors are interested in animal healing. And Stuart says as well, we have people always asking about animal healing. So it's a very, very well acknowledged genre. You see, for me, I think that's a fascinating subject, Lou, because animals don't have the emotional or intellectual bias that humans do. Therefore, if you're working with them on an holistic level of healing, then you really do have quite substantial evidence to demonstrate that your healing modality works. Do you find that's fairly accurate?
Yeah, definitely. It's what we do once we've lowered their thinking, we can then use that for like behavioral issues.
Yeah.
So you get dogs that are very anxious around like loud noises or fireworks or something like that, or just loud noises in general. And once we've used this method, you can see them, that they calm down. But it also means that once they've kind of learned, because their thinking is lower, they almost teach themselves, if you like. It's what we call realization learning, that they realize, oh, actually, that's not going to hurt me, because they're looking at it in a calmer state. It's a bit like us trying to do a task, and we're under a bit of pressure and we've had a bit of a bad day and you're trying to do something and it goes wrong and you can't do it and it's really difficult. But on another day, if you're in a calmer state, you haven't got that pressure. Oh, that was really easy. I've managed to do that. So you can quite clearly see, once you've calmed them, that going back to your question, sorry, I know it's a bit of a roundabout way of answering.
No, it's good.
You can quite clearly see the effects it has.
Wow.
I was working with a rescue dog the other day at a kennels. I haven't had a chance to post about it yet, but very, very anxious little dog, bless her. Tail right between her legs, like panting and really, like, I'd say probably a level 8 or 9. She was really, really super anxious. And within, I think, less than 15 minutes of working with her, she was laid down, nice and calm, head on the floor, breathing had calmed right down, nice and relaxed. So yeah, you definitely see the difference.
And is the process very similar to Reiki? Is it hands-on when you see your animal for the first time? Do you have a reciprocal feeling about what is wrong with the dog or the animal, or are you told by the owner?
Usually we so when I do the consultation, usually I talk to them about what they see and what they believe the issues are, and sometimes I do get a little bit of kind of intuition going on. Sometimes things just pop into my head, but it's more about the conversation with the person, and because I don't necessarily go in to do the calming. Yes, I'll do a demonstration to show them how to do it. I actually teach the person how to calm their animal.
Very interesting.
And it's more about them working with the animal, because it works on building the bond and the trust as well. Because basically, so there's like a if we think of a triangle, there's 3 things you need for an animal to be able to do something if you want them to do it. The first one is physically they've got to be able to do it. And secondly is they need to understand what it is that we're asking them to do. But I would say that probably the most important one is the trust, because if they don't trust you, they're not going to do it. So by having that, building that bond and that trust through this process, it helps with a lot of other stuff, and a lot of the behavioral issues almost can resolve themselves. Yes, we can work on them specifically, but because the trust is there and the relationship is there, that there's almost, when you practice a lot, you almost get that intuition yourself with your animal,
yes.
even if you've not previously done that. And they pick up on your feelings so well that they can do things without you even asking them, if that makes sense.
It does. Lou, is the process, is it hands-on? Is it very similar to Reiki? Is it?
No, it's not. So I do the Reiki as well, and sometimes I do combine the two, but no, it's more, as I say, it's more mindfulness with them.
Wow.
It's about creating the connection. And so we do it in 2 parts. First of all is the calming and lowering the thinking, and the other side of it is listening to them. So we watch them, we see what their behavior is and see what their reaction is to something, and take it from there. So every single session with every single animal is always tailored specifically to them. It's always at their pace. So we don't have, right, this is what we're going to do today and this is what we're going to achieve. We're literally guided by the animal every single time. And although sometimes that can feel like it's slow, it's actually the quickest way, because you're not pushing them past where they're comfortable, basically.
Fascinating. Can I take one track back here? How long does it take to learn to learn to be able to do this incredible work?
Quite a while. So the first step is you need to do the course where so that you can work with your own animals. That's quite a long online course, and I think that was probably nearly a year.
Wow.
And then it's 2 years on top of that to become a practitioner.
Goodness me.
Yeah, there's a lot involved.
And can you subsequently, can you then go on to train other people?
So at the moment, I can teach people one-to-one to work with their own animals. There is another step where I can train to be able to train other people, as it were. But there's, at the moment, I don't think I've got the time to do that. But and also because that's a lot more involved, that's the course for that is more one-to-one rather than the group learning. So there's a little bit of a wait list for that as well.
Liz asks, really it's a question as well as a interesting. It must be rewarding, Lou, for you and the owners to see the changes after such a short time. I'd imagine when the pet has learned how to trust feels, it benefits them in all different environments. Would you say that was accurate?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's initially we always start working where the animal is most comfortable. So usually, like with dogs, that's in their own homes, and then we can go out and about if needed. But just doing the work in the house where they're comfortable and lowering that thinking and calming them helps, and people notice changes before we've even worked on specifics.
Wow.
But it is very rewarding. Actually, yesterday I had a conversation with a lady. She phoned me, it was several months back. She phoned me because she'd been advised by her vet to have her dog put to sleep.
Oh, goodness.
This dog was only 2 years old, but it had started biting them. and she thought, oh, I can't, there's got to be something else. They'd tried behaviourists, they'd tried trainers, and the vet was like, no, she phoned me, and she actually lives in Scotland, so I went up. I think it was about 2 days later, because I thought I need to get there as quick as possible to give this dog a chance. Bless her. We've worked with her, we did several sessions, and I spoke to her yesterday, and she said she's a different dog. She hasn't tried to bite them at all for a long time. She's much calmer overall. There's still a little bit of work to do. She's got a few issues with getting in the car and travelling and stuff, but overall much better and much calmer in the house. Laying and sleeping in the evening, whereas before they were having to literally entertain her the whole evening. So yeah, very rewarding, especially with something like that.
Do you find that the animals that you work with, Lou, do you find that you have an empathetic bond that is permanent? Would a say, for example, do you think that dog would recognise you in, say, a year or 2 years when you came to see it again?
I would think possibly, yeah. They do. I think all of them leave, a little mark on me.
Yes. Yes.
And I think every single one of them teaches me something as well.
Yeah.
Because they're all different. But yeah, I definitely think, that there'd be a recognition there.
So can you work with any animal? Or do you
literally
specifically?
Any animal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, dogs and horses are my passion. They always have been. With the qualification, there's two different ones you can do. You can do domestic animals, they call it. So it's basically dogs, cats, small animals, birds. Or you can do horses and farm animals. And I was like, there's no way I can choose between dogs and horses. So I ended up doing both. So yeah, literally anything. So I've worked with a rabbit. I've worked with obviously dogs and cats. Yeah. The one that makes people laugh the most is I've worked with chickens.
No.
Yeah.
It does. Can I ask what the problem was?
Well, it was basically just there was a couple of guys that I know, and they've got, I think it's 6 chickens altogether. But one of them in particular wasn't very happy about being picked up. But obviously, when you've got to be able to check them over, you might need to be able to treat them, if there's anything wrong. So having them comfortable, to be picked up is quite useful, because it's much nicer for them if they're happy being picked up than, trying to wrestle with them, or, them being a bit stressed about it. So yeah, but that was quite good. So on the consultation, again, sort of less than half an hour in, from them all moving around quite quickly and clucking away and making lots of noises, everything suddenly calms down. So yeah.
Well, absolutely fantastic. Stuart makes quite a valid point here. Pets to some are as children. They fill spaces and offer comfort. So we look after them with a passion. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah.
And
do
No, carry on. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and I think a lot of them are very, because of the way they can read us so well, a lot of them provide comfort. Like, when you're ill, a lot of them will come and be with you and not want to leave you, because they're sort of looking after you and things, because they know. So, yeah,
do you I suppose you must have a phenomenal feedback from the owners of the animals when you have a success. They must be very thankful for the amount of work that you've done. And I also want to ask, do you get people who, as with the dog you were talking about earlier that was sadly almost condemned by the vet, do you find that people come to you as a last resort? And do you feel that maybe they're very skeptical, but it is a last resort? Do you love the transformation when you make that difference?
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be. I mean, I've even had so there's a lady that she's actually become a really good friend.
Mm,
She's an animal communicator herself,
mm.
and she's the one that has the rabbit that I was talking about
Yeah.
that I worked with. So being an animal communicator, she was doing really well with this rabbit that was a rescue. It was basically found in a car park. It had been dumped, and she was struggling with the physical handling, you know, being able to pick her up and handle her and stuff. And she found me and was like, you know, I don't know if you can help, but this is the situation. And yeah, she was amazed how much difference it's made.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
and then because we've now become friends, I've actually, because we worked on Zoom, because she was quite some way from me. Although I travel a lot, it was just easier, you know. So we did that
Mm.
on Zoom. But now I've become friends. I've actually been and visited her, and I was sat on the sofa, and because the rabbit's a house rabbit, she just came along and she jumped up on the sofa and got on my lap, and it was lovely. So yeah, it's made a lot of difference to her, and she was really grateful for that.
Do you ever sense a communication, such as animal communicators have between animals? Do you ever feel that they're talking to you while you're working with them?
I think sometimes, yeah, and sometimes I can be walking along the street and somebody will pass with the dog, and the dog kind of turns around and, you know, like as I've passed and looks at me, and
Yes.
sometimes I think, oh, you know, don't, like, I can't I can't just come up to your owner and say, you know, your dog needs help. But sometimes I just get that feeling, you know, that
Yeah,
they need
I
help
do.
and they're asking me, and I can't do anything about it.
I totally understand that. Do you know when you start to work with an animal, do you have an immediate idea of how many sessions you will have to work with the animal, or do you take it as it comes? Do you have
Usually
a
as it comes, yeah. So it, as I say, every single one is different. So sometimes, um, you know, you might think, oh, it's a straightforward problem, and then as we start to work with them, something else will come out. Um, so it was like an ex-racehorse I worked with. He had a couple of issues. One was he wouldn't stand still in his stable, like literally at all. And the other one is he wouldn't stand still for her to get on when she was riding him. And when we started working with him, we took it kind of backwards quite a lot, and realized that actually he had a problem having the saddle and the bridle being put on.
mm, mm,
So we ended up having to work with that before we worked on him standing still for her to get on. So obviously that took, you know, a little bit more, took some extra sessions and things. So and also with, I've had 2 or 3 occasions where people have got more than one dog, and you start to work with one, and then actually it becomes apparent it's not that one, it's one of the other ones is the one that actually needs more help.
yeah, interesting.
So that's, yeah.
So principally, it's behavioural, or do you also work on the physical level as well?
Both, yeah. So
Mm.
as I said, even though I'm teaching the person, they don't necessarily need to be, you know, to know Reiki or animal communication or anything like that. But just using the trust technique on its own, and lowering that thinking right down. So going back to the levels I was talking about, the 0 to 10. So I'll say in terms of dogs, because that's the easiest one most people know. So if they were sitting down, that's usually around a level 4. Laying down is usually around a level 3. Laying down head down is about 2, and then the eyes closing is 1. And then if they lay out on their side, usually, like, so when they, you know when they go fast asleep and they're dreaming and they're
I
laying on
do,
the
yeah.
side twitching a little bit, that's actually what we call a level 0, a healing state. And it's slightly different to them just going to sleep and dreaming, because we've brought those levels down, we've brought them down into that state. So if we can do that, that's actually where they can actually start releasing trauma and things if they've been through anything like that. And also it can help with the physical healing. And the other side of it is that once you've practiced and you can get them down to that level, and you've been practicing and that happens, and then there's a day where you can't, and they won't quite get down to that level, or they're looking at a particular leg, you can start seeing physical problems, whereas you might not notice it if you've not gone down, not slowed them right down and gone down to that level. You might not notice that issue,
because
so it can help with the physical as well.
And I suppose, as we all know, anybody who's had particularly dogs, they're very tolerant of pain, and people often don't realise that the dog's in discomfort, and it's only when it's realised at a probably an examination, or even a third person who comes along who hasn't seen the dog at all, you immediately say, "Hang on a minute, there's something wrong here," and you where the owner has fallen into the trap where the dog has progressively become worse and worse, and they probably haven't noticed it. Can I backtrack a little bit as well? The technique, the trust technique, where did it evolve from, and who did it? Is it an English technique, or is it where does it come from?
So it's a guy called James French. He basically grew up around a lot of animals, and he had some issues in his childhood, which led to him spending a lot of time with those animals. And he realized that he could communicate with them. So he actually became an animal communicator and used to teach people animal communication. And I think he was one of the first in the UK to start teaching people. But he's also a Reiki master, and his partner Shelley, she's Reiki as well. And between them, they just kind of looked at what they were doing for the Reiki and the animal communication, and then developed the trust technique. So as I say, although it originates from there, the people learning it for their own animals don't need to know either of those things. But it's just about the it's difficult, as I say. It's kind of difficult to say without doing the whole 2-hour conversation. But to be able to use that kind of mindset almost, I suppose, to help lower that thinking, that's kind of where it's come from. So it's quite unique, really. And there are now, because they teach online rather than just in person, there are practitioners all over the world. It is starting to spread.
How long has it been in existence for, Lou?
Oh, I couldn't tell you because I can't remember.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
No problem at all. It just came to me as we were talking.
I know it's been quite a while, because they used to go around a lot of rescue places and help animals, really, and that's when they sort of decided, actually, no, we need to spread this further and teach other people. And
I think that holistic healing for animals is an area that I really believe is quite neglected. Over the years of Liz and I working at events and running our own events, we have, I think, really come across only a handful of people who have really dedicated their work to it, their work to animals. I know of a couple of very, very, very good animal communicators who are really well established, and I know that they have an incredible following of people who truly love their work. And I think, I revert back to something I said to you earlier. I find it absolutely fascinating that because animals can't communicate and they don't have, if you like, an opinion. I mean, I do realize they have an opinion when they don't want to eat some type of food, or they don't like somebody, or whatever it is, but they are not going to be influenced about the idea that holistic or alternative therapies are trap and don't work. And I had an interesting conversation some years ago, and I've been trying to rack my brains for the last 5 minutes to remember the name, and I can't. I had quite an interesting conversation with somebody a few years ago, a very, very kind and very spiritual healer who was truly deeply involved with Reiki. And I can remember that she said to me, when I work with an animal with Reiki and I see the results after 2 or 3 sessions, and the animal really has become transformed, she said, I know for certain that this is evidence that Reiki, vibrational healing, has a very powerful effect. Yeah. I do believe that totally, that the universal energy of particularly Reiki is something that I find very interesting, can make major differences. And I do not think that it's placebo, and I do not think that it's mind over matter. I think there's something in it. And one of the reasons I say that is because it has been established for so many decades. It really does. Here we go, look. So I'm just going to put that up, but please carry on.
Yeah. I've got a lovely story actually about animal Reiki. So there's a lovely horse down where I've got mine. He's quite an old boy, and it's my friend who has him, and she said I could practice like trust technique with him whenever. And it was shortly after I'd done my Reiki 2, and I was just stood there with him doing a bit of trust technique. Now, when you work with horses, you stand with trust technique, you stand to their side, by their shoulder. And they quite often they'll turn their heads towards you because they're looking to see if you've got any treats. And he kept turning his head and sniffing my hands, and I was like, no, I've got nothing for you. So I was like stepping back a little bit out the way. And then he'd turn his head a bit more, so I was stepping back a little bit out the way. And I was just like, And he kept doing it, and I was like, okay. And I don't know what, just something in me said, just put your hands up on his rump. And I did. And immediately I did that, he went, and put his head down and just like relaxed. And I was like, oh, you were sniffing my hand. Oh, you want me to give you Reiki? That's what you were asking me. And we stood there and we did a lovely session of trust technique and Reiki. The next day I come down, he stood in the same spot, and he looked at me and he just went, like that. As he was like, come and give me some more. I was like, all right, okay. And I just thought that was so beautiful. He knew before I did that I was supposed to give him Reiki, and he knew how to come and ask me again. I just thought that was lovely.
The thing about animals, which I find absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure anybody who cares and loves animals, people talk about animals, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, this thing about animals knowing when their owner has been killed or has died, and that concept has been recorded so many times. It's no doubt that it happens, and it's right. I mean, I know that there are many occasions where a dog has been seriously upset and been wagging at the door and pacing up and down, and then that it's been discovered that the owner has died or something tragic has happened, you know, this connection is very potent. And I think that idea and that known, very, very verifiable concept, I think that has some evidence to do with vibrational long-term energy healing and distance healing, because there could be no other way, could there, if an accident or something happens miles and miles away and the dog knows that there's something tragic happened to the owner. And I think that that's a very valid point. I mean, the very strange thing is, and it isn't a strange thing, but it's an interesting thing, horses, I get on extremely well with horses, really well indeed. But dogs don't like me very much. And I have no idea why. They don't like me. Some will talk to me, but there are dogs that I won't say they don't get agitated. They don't become angry, if that's the right way of saying it. But they tend to ignore me. And it's very interesting. I don't know. I've no idea why it is. Liz, absolutely 100%. That's not to do with me and dogs. That's to do with Lou does her treatment with passion. You can tell the way she talks about it, and Liz says absolutely. Do you find when you initially talk to somebody? This is quite a strange question, and it's not one that you would anticipate. Do you feel when you're talking to the owner that you can sense what is wrong? Do you sometimes think, I know we've got to be a bit contentious here, do you sometimes think that the owner's the problem and not the animal?
Yes. But sometimes it's not them as in it's their fault. It's not, but sometimes it's just because they don't know what they don't know.
I absolutely understand that. Yeah,
and it's and then, you know, once they've been through, you know, once I've, you know, started teaching them that, oh yes, that makes sense. So
fascinating. Now, we'll just move away from animals for a moment. And with your Reiki, what's your history with Reiki? Have you worked with people extensively, or do you still work with people with Reiki? What's your history with Reiki?
So I do work with people as well. My passion obviously is the animals. But I haven't actually, with the Reiki stuff, I haven't actually kind of promoted that at all yet. So I'm focusing more on the trust technique stuff, and the Reiki kind of comes in as and when, if, you know, I think, well, that might help with this animal, or the person might benefit from it. So I've actually started doing, so when I do events like yourself, the one I did with yourself, I have started doing an offer at the events where I might either include a Reiki session for the animal, or I might include a Reiki session for the person if I feel they're the ones that are in need of it.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm doing that at the moment just as a little bonus.
No, it's good.
And then I think as and when I get a chance, I will promote it a bit more and maybe do that, you know, as an extra thing as well.
Holistic bonding.
Yeah.
I like that very much. I'm just going to have a quick... Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so I've done quite a bit of stuff with crystals as well. So I'm kind of doing, you know, I can do a combination of the Reiki and the crystals, like chakra balancing or anything like that as well. So and sometimes, so it might be, I have done a little bit of work with crystals with the animals as well. So again, that's, you know, sort of going to be developed as well a bit more, just as and when what people need, really.
So you do have quite a broad spectrum holistic healing modalities. So you've got crystals and your trust, and you've got your Reiki. Is there anything else that you love?
I did start doing a course on teaching meditation.
Interesting.
I actually finished the course, but I haven't got round to actually doing the assessments yet. So at some point that might come along as well. But yeah, there's only so many things you can do at once. So
there's Liz. Look, Liz is a crystal girl. Out of interest, have you a favourite crystal?
Oh, that's a difficult one. But I would say I've got one. So I've got this little one here. I don't know if you'll be able to see.
I can.
This little one here. I actually bought that at the show in Newcastle.
Lovely.
And I can't remember what it's called. It's blue something that was
blue
found
apatite?
at Stonehenge.
Oh yes, Liz will tell you. Liz, Stonehenge. I know. I can't think, but you'll get it.
But it's got like, I don't know if you can see on there. It almost looks like a little mini sort of cartoon dog.
It does.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah. So I think that's quite a special little one, yeah.
Malachite. Here we go. Look, Stuart. We love our crystals, don't we? Stuart has an absolutely phenomenal collection of crystals. When we had the crystal store in Nottingham, Stuart was quite a regular visitor, and he does very, very well respected and very well attended crystal healing courses as well. He's very, here you go, Brupracin stone.
Yeah,
that's it.
Liz.
That's Liz. Ask a question about crystals. Liz has usually got the answer. She's really had. Coming back to shows. If somebody bought a say their dog to a show, could you work instantaneously, or would it not work that way?
You could a little bit, but to be honest, I wouldn't recommend it. Because as I say, we usually start in the place that's the most comfortable for the animal.
Yeah.
Because that's fairer and easier for them as well as the person.
And what I'm fascinated about is when you're saying that you can work online as well. How does that work? Because I'm teaching the person how to do it rather than me necessarily doing it. Got it. Although normally in person, what I would do is a sort of a demonstration with their animal. Yeah.
If appropriate and the animal's comfortable with it, I have to say that, because I'm not going to like do something with an animal that's not, if it's not comfortable. But what I do is if I work online, then I have various little videos that I can show in place of the demonstration, of animals that I've already worked with, so that I can talk the person through that technique. Then I teach them, and then I let them work with their animal while I'm guiding them through to make sure they're comfortable.
That's fantastic. So you could literally work with anybody in any part of the country, or if indeed the world, if necessary.
Yes. I've recently done one with a lady in Texas. So yes,
that's
literally anywhere.
Incredible. that is incredible.
It is, yeah, which is lovely, because I don't mind traveling. Like, as I say, I've got a dog in Scotland at the moment. There's one in York, one in Derby. I've been to the other side of Cumbria. So yeah, all over. So I don't mind traveling, but sometimes it's not necessarily convenient, or it is a little bit too far. Like Texas is a little bit too far. Yes, it's handy to be able to do it online as well.
Mind you, I have to say, Liz and I are very partial to Texas. We really are. We do. We like Texas. We drove around Texas. It's just we love the vastness of it.
Yeah.
I said to a chap, this man called Dave, who owned quite a bit of land, and I won't bore you with the rest of it. And he said, "Do you like Texas?" I said, "I absolutely love it." He said, "Why don't you come and live here?" I said, "Oh, Dave," I said, "I've got all the problems with green cards and God knows what else." He said, "Oh, just come. Who the hell would know?" You'd have liked Dave. He was a bit in Texas. The wealthy are either oil or cattle, and
Yeah.
Dave was cattle. And I said to him, "How big's your ranch, Dave?" He says, "How far could you see?" And he got up, and he was about 80-ish, and he was out on his horse at 5 every morning, looking at his ranch. I've just had a vision of queues of people waiting to come to Grandstand Hall with rabbits, horses, cats, and dogs. That would be nice, though, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
Yeah. I'll sign you up now, says Lou. How do people find you? Is it word of mouth, or is it searching on the internet?
Either or, yeah. So I'm trying to do more events rather than like posting online and stuff, because I think it's nicer to talk to people about things.
Yeah.
It's a bit more personal. So yes, I'm out and about at events as much as I can. But I've also got my website where I've got my testimonials and things. So.
And how do you handle the skeptic? Because you'll get one now and again, won't you?
Oh yes, yeah. I think when people are ready, they're ready, and if they're not, they're not. Then, you know, it's not. I don't think it's one of those things that you can force. I think, I don't know. I just find that the right people come to me at the right time. And yeah, I think it's just.
I think the thing is, I always find it very interesting with skeptics. I always think they should have better things to do. It's like a mission, isn't it, for them to track down somebody to try and disprove. But you see, the great thing about our work, spiritual, holistic healing, it doesn't matter. To me, if you don't like it, well, walk away. I'm not interested in I don't like football particularly. I like watching the odd match, but you know, I'm not going to go and pursue football people and say, "You maniacs, you watch it," you know, because I don't like it. I mean, it's like Liz and I love motorbikes, and you'd be surprised how many people with no understanding of them whatsoever have this abhorrent hatred of them because you know, Joe's uncle's brother's cousin's aunt son fell off one and broke his leg. You know, and that's what it is. You see, I think the thing is, all of our work, all spiritual work, spiritual healing, thoughts about healing, it has such a long legacy that if it was a failure, then it would close. It wouldn't have continued. I'm certain of that. I accept wholeheartedly that there are some very weird and cranky people out there who frankly do not do our cause a lot of good. There was a very good organizer some years ago, and I knew one of the people who were involved in that organization very, very, very intensely, very deeply. And I was in a car driving along with this individual, this person, and I said to it was Annie, who a lot of people who'll be watching this will know who I'm talking about, and I said, "What do you think actually happened to that organization?" And she said something that was profound. She said, "I can tell you, Ian." She said, "We didn't go and listen to the talks." And I said, I knew a little bit where she was coming from. She said, basically, we didn't check the talks and we allowed people to just ramble on about anything. One, the talks weren't very well presented. They weren't very well researched, and there were people talking utter nonsense. And I think what people fail to accept at a talk is that having been, and there are people on here who will verify this, I am a very good stage presenter. I really do know how to present a talk, and I really do know how to capture an audience because I'm trained to do so. But I know wholeheartedly it's like the yawn. If somebody yawns, another person will yawn. And I actually tried this once in a quiet audience. I actually yawned, and I counted that over half of the people in the audience started yawning. And there is a clapping effect as well. And you can actually encourage people to clap, even though they may not even like you. In fact, we can evidence that by looking people at theatres. The audience will always clap, even if they didn't like the performance. So what actually happens is that you have the run of the moment. A presenter does a talk, not too good, not well researched, and there's a bit of an applause. And for a moment, everybody thinks that it's been a good presentation. But what happens is, on the way home, you'll get a couple of people who say, "Oh God, wasn't that a load of rubbish?" and then somebody will say, "Oh, what was the show like?" And they'll say, "Oh, well, I went to listen to this person. It was absolutely bonkers. It was absolutely ridiculous. You know, they were talking about curing cancer or something of that nature, which is, you know, just a bit OTT for a big audience to be talking about." And all of a sudden, that filters through to a lot of people, and in the end, the show collapses and the event collapse. And it's, you know, plainly some people just talk about things which are just not accurate, and that's when the damage is done. But I come back specifically to what I believe is a very, very fascinating and interesting subject, which is holistic and vibrational healing. I mean, there's a lady who you wouldn't have met, Jill Moore, who works on our circuit, and she is a lady who has been involved with spiritual healing forever and a day. And do you know something? I walk, as you know, I walk the floor and I talk to people. I don't get too much in communication with people. I like to see what's going on. I like to talk toward the people, the visitors. And I cannot tell you how many people that I've spoken to have said, "God, you know, I've sat with that woman and I feel fantastic." That's brilliant. And you can't put your finger on what it is. Let's just have a quick look. Liz says, "Lou's a prime example of an exhibitor who attends events and uses the opportunity to engage with visitors and talk about her work and how it may be of benefit. Lou doesn't sit behind a table with her head down, ignoring visitors to pass." And we were talking about this on the previous slides. I mean, interaction's very important, I think.
Absolutely,
Yeah, definitely. So let me just have a few moments. Is there, if there was one story that really captivates, if you're allowed to, if you feel that you want, so is there one that you would like to speak about with the audience? Yeah,
I mean, I think obviously I've already mentioned the dog that we saved. There is one, and I don't want to lower the tone.
I understand that.
Just technique as well as obviously the Reiki, but can be really helpful for elderly animals, for like end of life care, because it can also help the person to deal with things better. And we had an elderly dog that we lost a few years ago, and then we had another one that we lost November before last. Now, I knew when it was getting to the time, and she didn't particularly like traveling in cars. She always got travel sick, so I didn't want to have to take her to the vet. And I just knew on the night when it was going to happen, and I slept down on the sofa so she didn't have to go up the stairs. And I held her in my arms, and I told her that we loved her, and I told her that it was okay for her to let go, because I think a lot of the time animals hold on for us. and she passed in my arms, and that sounds very sad, but it was almost a beautiful moment, if I can say it that way.
Yes, you can.
But
you can.
I felt that it helped me to know that she'd passed peacefully. But I coped with that a lot better. Obviously, I was upset and everything the same as normal, but I was much more peaceful about it than I have been with previous animals that we've lost.
Interesting.
So I just think it's something that people are not aware of, that, you know, there is help out there to be able to have a nicer end for their animal and for them, because a lot of the time we're so upset and worried and feeling sorry for our animal, and the animal doesn't really understand that feeling, and they're trying to hang on for us, and then it's worse for them and worse for us. So
yes,
I just feel it's a nice thing to be able to share, so that people know there is something they can do.
I think you're very brave and very giving to have said that. I really do. Yeah. It's interesting. Somebody remained nameless. This connection to animals. She said to me last year at Lincoln, she said, I felt she just lost her dog. And I said, how do you feel, X? And she said, worse than when I lost my mother. and I just had to laugh. There's a few people out there who might know who this is. She's a bit direct. I mean, she didn't mean it maliciously. She just, just talking about the level of it.
Yeah.
Lou, believe it not, we've been talking for over an hour.
Oh wow! Okay.
So, will he come back? Will he come back and have a bit more of a chat about animal healing?
Yeah, of course.
It's a fascinating subject, and there are a few questions that I've jotted down here, and I'd like to ask you now, but I know we'll be at another half an hour or so, and it won't happen there. And I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to send you the questions, and I'd like to bring you back on, because we've had a few people on board this evening, and there's a lot of people stayed with this, so I know that there's a great deal of interest in what you do, and I think that all people will realise that you're so clear-minded about it, and you're so precise about how you're talking about it. So it's very valid, and I'd like to actually promote it a little bit more with people sending in questions beforehand, which I can give to you, you can talk about it. And I think it's come to me that I think that might be a very good way of approaching and going with this. Let's say something. I can relate to this, Lou. Many years ago when he had Doug, and she was at the end, but I couldn't take her to the vet as she hated it there. I booked the vet to come to the home, and the night before I sat with her throughout the night and thanked her for being such a good pet for my children and such a friendly dog with the family. I stroked her while she calmly lay as the vet administered the medication, and I'm sure you understand that entirely. I can tell it in your face how you feel about it. Stuart says, very interesting chat. So I'd love you to meet Lou. I had a captivating conversation with her when I was up in Newcastle, and there's a kindness and a really wonderful giving and loving vibration about her. She's absolutely fantastic lady, and I'm sure, Stuart, you'd absolutely love it. And here's my Lisa. Enjoyed it. Lovely friend. I've known Lisa for a long time, and she's very kind, very empathetic lady. Hope Sam is good. Hope she's keeping well. And I think we're going to wind it up, Lou. Have you got anything else you'd like to say before we do so?
No, I don't think so. But well, obviously, if anybody's interested and wants to speak to me, then just feel free to reach out.
So let's get that banner up. You can go to, there you go, Zendalu. Have a quick look at it. I had a look at it yesterday and the day before. Fascinating, absolutely wonderful website. Contact details are all there, so if you want to get hold of Lou.
Yep.
And the other thing is, remember, you can contact Lou and you can work online. So it doesn't matter where you are, you'll be able to work with Lou. And I would suggest initially, Lou, the best thing to do is email and let the people tell you what they feel is wrong with their animal, and then you can assess it before you go. So, Lou, I cannot thank you enough for being on board. It's been absolutely captivating, and I mean captivating conversation. People will notice that I haven't promoted our up and coming event. I as we progressed, I really think I just felt that I wanted to stay just talking about Lou and the work she does. So I'm really promoting Mansfield at the moment, but I really feel that we'll leave this live as it is, so when people watch it, they'll be watching it solely about what Lou does and Zenderloo and animal healing, and I think it's that we'll leave it at that. So this one's just for you, Lou. Brilliant.
Thanks, Ian. That's very kind.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And Stuart says, thank you for taking the time. I can't thank you enough. And Liz says, look forward to the next time with Lou, and I'm sure you do. And I think we can certainly build quite a few more people to ask a lot of questions, because there's quite a few that I've written down here. And here we are. I have talking cats. There you go. Great. Lou, I'm going to wind off now. Stay on board. Don't go away. Just a quick thank you to all the people who've been on board. There's been quite a fluctuation of people. I can see them down on my console that have come in and gone out. So we've had quite a few people on board. Stuart, thank you very much. Liz, as always. Kirsty Wood, you haven't met Kirsty, but she's a fantastic lady. Lisa, of course, very, very loyal friend and tremendous follower of our work. Yourself, and we've had Lisa and a few others. I know I'll have missed somebody. Sorry about that. But thank you, Lou Wilkie. You've been absolutely marvellous. It's been a wonderful conversation. I know it's been a good conversation because an hour and 10 minutes have just literally flown by. Thank you, everybody. Stay on board and have a lovely, lovely week ahead. And I'll speak to you all next week. I'm not going to be on Friday with the bulletin about the show because we have to travel to Yorkshire to prepare the residents, the people who are what we're talking about, for the kids for when they go up in Easter. Play outro. Thank you, Lou. Thank you.